So from $30,000 borrowed to $130 million portfolio.
This is like 2004, right? 2005. This is like well beyond a lot of other great resources out there. And the local REIAs, though, have such a great value of like local community, local investors supporting each other.
You're listening to the REIA Show. If you're looking for quality real estate investing information that you can trust, you've found it. Stay tuned and join the tens of thousands of members that have already benefited from REIA, your home for education, market information, support, and networking opportunities that will advance your real estate investing career.
Hello, REIA family. Welcome to another episode of the REIA Show. I'm Marcus Maloney, your host, and we have our executive director, Mike Del Pre, as our co-host. How you doing today, Mike?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Come on, Mike, get the energy up. I'm
working on it. I got the, the coffee.
Oh, you got the artificial motivation there. So I'm gonna bring the energy until Mike gets his energy built up. So today we have Liz Faircloth with us today, and Liz is the co-founder of the DeRosa Group. If you've listened to this podcast for any time, you notice just a few weeks ago, we had her husband, Matt, on. So they are a power couple. They are a power team that's doing things in the commercial real estate space. So we wanted to drive home the point, 2 points, that you can work spouses together. And for you women that are listening to us, you can be empowered to be successful no matter what the tradesmen try and teach you, try and say to you about being a woman and an investor. Because I know, and Mike know, that women sometimes make the better investors because sometimes they're more analytical and they're really ready to take the risk. So that's what we want to drive home with Liz. So Liz, I know I did a brief introduction, but give us your background and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Marcus and Mike, for having me. Excited to be on. Yeah, a little bit about me. My background is actually, I was going to graduate school, getting my master's degree in social work. So I actually wanted to be a therapist. That was my goal. Wanted to open a shingle and put my name on it and help people in that way. And I still love helping people. But I decided right around the time I was actually getting my degree, my brother-in-law, who was the only entrepreneur I knew, handed me a little purple book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, you really need to read this. So I was like, okay, I'm not sure why I'm reading this. It has nothing to do with my schoolwork. Long story short, that really opened my eyes to, to business, to entrepreneurship, to real estate, just like so many people. And really said, you know what, I don't know if I want to get a job in the social work field. So I decided to get a job in the sales field. And because one of the skills that Kiyosaki talks about in the book is to be, if you're going to be effective at anything, investing or entrepreneurship, you have to know how to sell. So I got a job actually as a consultant right after my grad school, doing sort of like organizational development. I was an expert in a personality assessment. So I worked with teams and I had to sell people on this assessment tool and sell them on why they should work with us for training purposes. So that's kind of how I got my start from a professional field. At the same time, I met my husband and we went to our local REIA for about a year in our 20s and didn't have much money, but we had this dream of buying our first property. And we did about a year into it, bought a duplex in a little town outside of Philadelphia. We went door to door. We would go to every course we could, every workshop, because that's the only time we got the chance to see each other because we weren't living together on the weekends. And they said, go call for in ads. And so I did. So we called for in ads and said, hey, are you interested in buying your property? We're interested in buying your property. We see we have a vacancy. And that was the strategy that we used. And we found this duplex in a little town called Roxborough, row home, very small little home, but made it happen. Didn't have the money. So I borrowed about $30K from my father, who really didn't have a ton of money either, my parents, but they really trusted us and, saw our vision. And that kind of got our start in investing and kind of professionally how I shifted gears.
So your dates were real estate events.
Yes, they were. Isn't that
That's
funny?
awesome.
Most people, right, were going like in their 20s at the time, right? I was in my mid early 20s and he was a little older than me, still is. And everyone would be, hanging out at the bars and this and that. And him and I would be writing business plans and looking at property and hanging out at the local REIA, DIG, Diversified InvestHER Group. They're still active as well in the Philadelphia area.
Want to hang out at a seminar tonight? So mad.
Yeah.
So
Love
from
it.
from $30,000 borrowed to $130 million portfolio. So guys, did you hear that? I said from a $30,000 investment to a $130 million portfolio. Now, this didn't happen overnight, Liz, right?
No.
It took you 27 years in order to do this. But
27. Don't age me now.
that's what I said, right? 27?
Overnight success.
Okay. Yeah. So you had
17 years.
17
Makes me
years.
feel a little younger, Marcus.
There
You
you
know?
go.
Gotcha. Okay. So 17 years of investing, and your groundwork was through that local REIA, correct?
Yep. Correct.
All right. So now Matt tells the story, and I'm gonna tell on Matt real quick because
We tell different stories too. We have different memories of things. So I'm probably contradicting something he already said.
No, actually, what he said was you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
And when you guys were dating, you gave it to him.
Correct.
And he was like, okay, any woman that gives me a book on investing is a keeper. So you won him over by being an investor or starting out as an investor. Kudos to you for that, first of all. So tell us about that foundation and that groundwork that REIA laid for you guys, because you're going into this completely green. You want to be a therapist and you pivoted and you needed to know where to get the education. So why that local REIA?
Yeah. And, this is like 2004, right? 2005. This is like well beyond a lot of other great resources out there. And the local REIAs, though, have such a great value of like local community, local investors supporting each other. And I think that still holds true with what you guys are up to with your REIA and a lot of the great REIAs that are out there. Same with DIG. So we got that. We got a chance to get to know the local investors. One of the people that we took through the property that we ended up buying was a gentleman we met through DIG, and he was a pretty seasoned contractor and just started to give us insight into that world, which is an enormous world, right? How much things cost, what type of maintenance and what we would have to actually do to the property to get it up to speed. And so, yeah, I really found a lot of value in just educating ourselves, but educating ourselves through people that were local. Of course, the people would come in from different parts of the Carlton Sheets, would come in, the old school teachers, right? What was his name? Rob Sheeman. He's still out there teaching. So a lot of the folks that were like the kind of the pioneers of a lot of the real estate education, if you will, they all had different tips and ideas. And the landlording gentleman, his name is escaping me. He was terrific. And we built our landlording because we self-managed for 100 units before we started shifting our business model. And what was his name?
Wow.
Great book. It was such a foundational book for us. So we really built our business through the resources we got through DIG and the people that came and talked to us. It was huge. It was everything of how we got our start.
Love it. Hey, Marcus said something, it's a segue a little bit. He said, pivot, right? So that's a popular word today, especially after COVID and everything. So my thought on pivot. So you pivoted from school and therapy to real estate. So there's other types. There's two types of pivots. That type of pivot where you made a great decision, changed the trajectory of your life. Then there's the pivot of like maybe a newer investor, since we're talking about REIAs, of, hey, I want to wholesale today, and tomorrow I want to flip. Or
Well, that's a whole other.
I want to do subject to investing. Oh, wait. So how does a newer investor or just investors in general kind of avoid that or make the right pivot?
Yeah, that's a great point, right? There's a strategic time to pivot. And then there's like this shiny object syndrome where, they're just jumping into something because it's the new thing that people are talking about, or not really the new thing, but could be just another strategy. And we really were victim to that, or if I should say, we really fell into that. Me and my husband, we weren't as focused, and so we got involved in so many different niches for that very reason, Mike. And we were naive, we were young, so that didn't help, and we had some lines of credit through our parents' homes to kind of use. So those are dangerous kind of recipe of sometimes getting involved in too many things too quickly. I think the way that the folks that are listening, the way to kind of decipher for yourself, is this a shiny object? Am I not focused, or is this the right move for me? I think has a lot to do with stepping back and going, where do I want to be in 5 years? Like, what are my big goals? what's important to me, what will be important to me then, what it's important to me now, because then that starts to like, you kind of say shift the gears in a sense of saying, okay, for us, we were self-managing for literally 100 units. We had a team built and we had a property that we got under contract that was an hour and a half away. So at that point, we had a choice. We could either find a local team to self-manage that property. It was about 50 units, our largest project to date at that time, or we can shift and pivot and go to self-management. And so for us to make that right decision, we really had to say, where do we want to be in 5 years? And the 5-year mark for us was, okay, we want to be building a business that we're proud of. We want to be using our core genius. And quite honestly, property management, for everyone listening, is not easy. And unless you have a strong project management system in place, process, people, you could run it like a well-oiled machine. Yeah. My husband and I are not the most, I wouldn't call us operators. We're more people oriented. So, you have 2 people oriented individuals running a property management company. We're going to give people exceptions. We're going to have a lot of that happening. We're not going to be running quite honestly, a well-oiled machine that really you need to when you're doing property management. So we had to start to say, where do we want to be? We have to look ourselves in the mirror. And it was a perfect opportunity to pivot and say, let's start working with third-party management companies. Hey, working with third-party management has its own challenges, right? And I can go, that's another episode, another day, but it really gave us a chance to pivot, but pivot powerfully. It aligned with our deeper goals, our deeper vision. And quite honestly, what are we good at and what are we not good at? So I think pivoting makes sense in those constraints. I think just getting distracted and also economic factors, right? Right now, multifamily is still very expensive. So for you to put your head in the sand and say, I'm only going to do this, you have to pivot. You may have to pivot to different strategies, different ways of approaching, maybe new construction. Like you can't just put your head in the sand. You can't change the economy. You can only participate in it. So that's another example.
Love it.
So true. So true.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
Recap. I love it. She said, is it, asking yourself, is this a shiny object? Is it right for me? Is it aligned with your goals and everything? And I like how you said, pivot powerfully. That's pretty cool. I like that.
In a way that serves you, right?
That's cool. Love it. All right, Marcus, sorry.
Yeah. So no, kind of along that same theme. So how did you all, knowing that you're taking this risk, how did you all say, you know what, in spite of everything that we're seeing, in spite of what's going on, me and Matt, we're going to join forces and we're going to take this risk together versus, if you said, hey, Matt, you're not on board, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Kind of what was that conversation? Did he get on board because you were the ambitious person, or did you guys kind of work that thing out together?
Yeah, we did. Like, again, our first date, well, I didn't like him at first. That's a whole other good story, but I didn't like him at first.
He didn't tell us that. He didn't tell us that.
He's not very good at flag football, and I'm sort of competitive. And I met him and he had a few too many drinks. So those are my 2 first impressions of him. But anyway, when we did have our first date, we got very deep with each other. And, when you meet people, I'm very authentic. I've always been that way. It's how I was raised. And same with him. And we would be talking about where do we want to be, in 5 years, 10 years. We always had those conversations. We had it on our first date. So from a value perspective, we were always very aligned with where we wanted to be, who we were. We both really wanted to make a difference. That was something we've always both wanted. I mean, I was a social worker, right? That's literally my training. He was an engineer, but he still had that same kind of need. So I think alignment of values is critical with spouses working together, any partners working together. And sometimes those values change, but I think that really created this framework of like, okay, there's alignment here. Now, where we wanted to go and how we wanted to do it, him and I are different, right? And we've had to navigate that and what our roles are and all the things that you have to figure out over time. But yeah, I think the value alignment was critical up front. And we would write our goals together. Like we wanted to, just these crazy goals that at the time make sense to you, but they don't make. I want to own like 100 units in 2 months. Like, okay, we have no money. We have no connection. We're 25 years old. Before social media really took off. Like, what were we thinking? But, you have these goals. So I think him and I were always kind of on the same page. It was never like I was trying to convince him. He wasn't trying to convince me. That was always very aligned.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Because, we have a large community, and that's one of the things that we see as husband and wives, spouses trying to work together, and they trying to figure out, okay, the roles, who should do what, and when should they
Yep.
do it. And sometimes they bump heads, and just wanted to get that perspective from you and Matt as far
Yeah.
as working together as spouses in real estate.
And something else that we've found is that every time you work with your spouse, you have to really like feed into and nurture like 4 entities. So you have the marriage, right? And then you have the business, which is your investing, right? And then you have each person, because there's 2 people, unless you're in a unique marriage,
Yeah.
it's cool too, whatever goes for you. But most people, there's 2 people. So there's 4 entities. And so in hindsight, right? Because we've been married now, this September will be 18 years. You start to really get a sense of like when you're not cultivating all 4 of those, or who's cultivating, who's owning the business. Are you both owning it?
Right.
It's hard to be 50-50 with your spouse in a business. And when we were 50-50, and we're still technically 50-50, but he's more day to day, has been for quite some time, especially as our business started to scale. We needed different partners. We needed different skill sets beyond just my husband and I. So that's the other part of it, is that just to really get clear on like, what are the 4 entities that will have?
That's completely key what she's saying though, Mike, because I never looked at it that way. When you have spouses and you're working in a business together, you do have the 4 different individuals or entities that you have to deal with. You have to deal with
Was it
each personality. You have the 2 individuals, then you have the business, and then you have your family life. So
Got it.
doing things jointly together, plus doing things individually, and then the business. So that can definitely present challenges for spouses that's trying to work together. And that's one of the things that me and my wife is starting to work through. So you have your 2 individuals, plus you have your family, and you have your business. So yeah, those 4 entities, you definitely have to take into consideration. And somebody in the family may be more ambitious than the other. And
Correct.
sometimes you feel like you're dragging that person, but that just might not be their skill set where they're suited at. You have to take that into consideration as well.
Yeah. And I would say too, what really has served us is saying like, the marriage is central, right? That has always come before everything else. Like we didn't get married. We didn't meet each other through a REIA, right? And that would have been cool if we did.
Yeah.
But we met each other and then created a business, right? And then became business partners. It wasn't the other way around. So when we've had tough things happen, which there has been a lot, you start to say, okay, what's really central here? And then the marriage needs, feeding, that kind of partnership. And then the business is there, but it shouldn't be all in the same bucket. It's different. It's a different relationship. You have to have those different roles, and then really seeking to get support for each person. Like, what does each person need? You sometimes lose yourself, and there's a whole other, like a lot of stuff that you can kind of distill from that. But
like check this out. So how do you like, you have that argument at home or wherever it is, whatever happens in life, personal life, then you got to go to the office together. You have your team. There's this background frustration potentially in the back of both of your heads, right? And you got to like perform. You can't, like, how do you deal with that?
yeah, it was hard. I mean, when we were both working outside of our office, at our office in Trenton, we would go there. We would be working from home though. So like I would also work from home. He would go to Trenton. So we did have that separation, which was kind of nice. But in terms of like team meetings and things like that, we really are very clear on like who's leading this, like who owns it, who's not owning it, who owns what. Not that we've always had it all figured out, or there hasn't been any crossover or any frustration, but I think overall that's really important. Like if he was in charge, I didn't ever step over him and just try to take over. So if we would have a fight, I knew my role in that meeting, and then I did what I needed to do, and same with him. So I think we rose above it. But quite honestly, for so many years, it was him and I, right?
Yeah.
So when we were in the throes of growing our business, it was him, myself, and the contractors we hired, or but then we started to build staff, and we had built a property management team and a construction team. We were doing everything in-house. He was the leader of that. So he was meeting with them more often. And I was doing more on the property management side. And so we're always very clear in our roles though. I think that's also the key.
Important. Being clear communication in any relationship is huge. So,
True.
I did a little research and we're talking about management and teams. And you said
Mhm.
something, and I don't really hear that often. So this will go into like management and stuff. You said you don't make your money on the buy, you make your money on the management.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can you dive
Yeah.
into that?
Sure. I think it's so many people get so enamored with like the acquisition of a property, right?
Mhm.
And obviously that's kind of like in a lot of ways for some people very kind of fun part of it, right? Negotiation, getting the deal, getting the project, like that's a
Yep.
very much an adrenaline rush for a lot of people. How am I going to finance it? Especially for like risk takers, they probably get very
Mhm.
excited by that. And so most people think, yes, you have to buy right. So by all means, you have to buy at the right number. And especially in this market today, right? You cannot
Yep.
Yep.
allow yourself just to get impatient and just not be smart because we've gone to best and final for so many deals and have not, gotten some of these properties just because it's crazy, the numbers.
Hmm.
So, to answer your question though, it's like you can buy right, but then really how are you going to make your money and optimize your return? Is the managing of it. So you could take a great property that you bought at the right price and run it into the ground because of poor management and really not running it like a business, running it efficiently, right? It's a project, and your best property managers are project managers. They really are. They're running timeline. Managing timeline and managing budget and managing people. Ultimately, take any real estate project. Ultimately, those are the three pieces that needs to be kind of managed and held accountable and very numbers oriented, quite honestly. So, when we bought, it was always about how can we add value. So that was always our focus. We didn't
Yep.
really buy the
Hmm.
properties that only needed a little bit of work. Our tenure and really our most of our experience is really always taking the properties that need a ton of work, the really big turnarounds, even from a large scale to small multis. So you can never avoid having to really make your money on the managing side, really, but ultimately people are buying turnkeys or maybe just properties that need a little bit of work. They don't realize that as much. They don't, and I think that's everything in this business. So if you're more of not a non, operational person and you don't like to manage deadlines and budgets, and I certainly don't, to be perfectly frank, you need to have someone
Hmm.
who can, and you
Yep.
need to have that energy in your business because it will make or break you, hands down. So, and if it's not you, find someone who can.
Absolutely.
Deadlines and budget.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
True.
And people.
Yeah. And that's essential, is always building out that team and having that team in place. And your husband, Matt, he did a perfect job in identifying those team members. You said what was it, Mike? Can you remember? Was it the hammer?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
The
Oh, what was it?
Yeah, it was the hammer. It
Yep.
was the brain. It was the hammer, brain.
The market, or the person
Markets.
that's looking for the market. I know these four as well. I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
going blank on them.
yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Hold on.
Hammer,
If
brain.
you're listening, just go to Matt Faircloth's episode.
Yeah, yeah.
You'll hear
The hunter. The hunter was
Yeah,
that was
the
the
hunter.
acquisition guy. And I can't think of the last
Yeah,
one, but
that
I
was
think I
really
did pretty good. 75%, 3 out
The
of 4 is
money,
not
the
bad.
money.
There you go. The money,
Yeah.
one of the
Yep.
main things.
The main thing.
Yep.
Yep.
So he did a great job explaining that. And that's how you guys work to build your business, because a lot of people in the beginning, they have this false ideology of, I have to try and do it by myself, to do it all by myself. But the only way you can scale is by having these key roles and these key positions in place. So I just wanted to kind of recap and bring that up,
Yeah.
because we say 130 million portfolio, but it's a team effort in order to do that.
I also say one other thing is that Matt and I became redundant in terms of our styles, meaning that we really didn't scale until we said, we really need somebody who's like the hammer, who's at the property, managing, the manager or really critical to that kind of managing timeline, managing budget. And then you have like the brain who's really doing ops. They're the ones putting the business plan together. They're underwriting, ultimately ensuring everything's according to budget. Those are the two energies that we're always missing in our company. We built our company by having really like hard work ethic, being honest with people, finding deals, building relationships, bringing people together, and getting the right deals, of course, and certainly. But if we had that one contractor that was not the right contractor, him and I were never like this amazing hammer who were able to hammer that person or really hold that person. We had, KPIs, we had a project plan, but still we were always doing it in a good way, but not in an excellent or an exceptional way, I should say. So those are the energies that were kind of missing as we scaled. And those energies you can't miss when you scale. Maybe on a duplex or a 10plex, you can get away with it because it's less units, quite honestly. But when you're scaling and you're not that person and you're turning around maybe 30 units at a time, you just, the ship will sink and it'll sink very quickly. So we became really clear on like not redundancy, but him and I, very similar personalities in a lot of ways. I'm a little more detail oriented than him, but in general, we both like to be the relationship people. We always see relationships before everything else. That's just who we are. So anyway, that becomes important. And our ability to say, we're redundant here. What are the gaps? Who needs to step back? Was really very, very pivotal for us and was the reason we were able to build the right team and the right partnerships to scale into large multifamily, to be perfectly honest.
Okay. Now I have a question that I definitely need answered. So this is a selfish question. So everybody just get ready. This is a Marcus question. All right. So how did you know, Liz, when it was time for you and Matt to say, you know what, we need to scale up and do something bigger? Because everybody could stay at that, 10 units. We just keep buying 10 units and increase our passive income. How did you know when it was time to start looking at 100 units, to where you guys now own hundreds and hundreds of units?
Yeah, we took like once we got focused on like multifamily, because we were, like I said, for the first few years, we were a little all over the place. 2010 was a really critical year for us because we said, okay, where are we having success? And so I'm going to answer your question, but I just think this will be helpful as a background.
No.
We said, where are we having success? We said small multifamilies is really where we're having success. And how are those structured? We were doing some kind of small equity deals. And then we just had done our first syndication for 16 units. It was a 10 unit and then a 4 unit and a duplex. Was our first syndication. And so we started to have success with this model, right? And so we also were in New Jersey and Northeast Philadelphia. Those are our markets. And then, 2013, in that ballpark, the numbers just didn't work anymore. So our market we started to say, we have to look elsewhere than just our kind of area right now. So then the next piece was we read 10X by Grant Cardone. I like Grant Cardone. I mean, I don't know if I follow all of his material and his stuff, but we read that book. And I have to tell you, it was a great light bulb that went off on us. We're like, we're staying small right now. And I think we were a little nervous because quite honestly, we did have a lot of challenges at the beginning because we were all over the place. So the last thing we wanted to do was get all over the place again. Right. But I'll say, and scaling in the niche that you're in is less risky than starting a whole new niche. You're adding units. I mean, obviously a duplex is different than a 100 unit. Of course it is, but you're not changing, and we were adding markets, but you start to say, how do I mitigate the risk here? So we felt confident that we knew enough to do that. And then we actually got a coach. So we started working with Joe Fairless, is a good friend of ours still. And he just started a coaching program at that time. I don't know if he's doing it anymore. He's a great guy and has built a very successful syndication business. Anyway, he said, look at 100 deals. And we did. And one of the deals that we looked at was this 49 unit, which at the time, our largest acquisition was an 18 unit. So again, 49, 18, it's not like this. It was a different market, but it was also like just adding some units to it. And it seemed like we were mitigating the risk. And so that's really how we found that. And that's one of our, was a really linchpin for us was when we started hiring that third party management, got out of state. It was in Pennsylvania, Lancaster. And then the next deal was in the Southeast. And then that really opened up our kind of scale. So I think the key is like to look at what kind of business you want to build. Some people have 20 units and they own them 100%. And, that works for their lifestyle and scaling is not for everyone. So we don't own 100% of all of our units, right? Hello, unless we're just sitting on millions and billions. We raise it. We work with 400 investors. Not everyone wants to or needs to build that type of business. But I'll say it aligned with who we were. what we were trying to build and the type of business that we were moving towards. So it worked for our structure. But I think so many people think about scaling, but they're scaling for the wrong reasons. They're not even scaling for any reason
Yeah.
that makes sense sometimes.
Just for numbers.
Yeah, it's like the numbers of doors. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how many doors you own. It really doesn't.
True.
It doesn't, and just please don't ask me that if you meet me at a networking event, because I'll tell you, just go pound sand. But it doesn't
Yep.
mean anything, And so more question is, why do you want to scale? Where do you want to be? And if that serves you, then go for it, but if it doesn't, buy another duplex. Might be
True.
easier for you.
True. I love it. I like you just keep going back to where are we having success. I like how when you were talking about pivoting, you just went back to that, right? Practice what you preach. I love it. That great question to ask yourself.
Yep. So let's take a moment, hear a word from our sponsors. And then when we come back, Liz, we want to talk about the female perspective in this real estate industry, how you started building your tribe of women investors and how you empowered them to really get out there and be successful. So let's hear a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll talk about the InvestHer side of things.
Attention, all female investors, as REIA is excited to announce our good friends are coming to town. Don't miss out on the InvestHer Con event in Scottsdale, Arizona on May 18th and 19th. Join us for 2 days of networking, workshops, and keynote speeches from successful female investors. Attend InvestHer Con and make valuable connections and gain the confidence you need to take your investing to the next level. Don't wait. Click on the link in the show notes and get more details and the best pricing for InvestHer Con in Scottsdale, Arizona on May 18th and 19th, or visit asria.org/calendar to secure your spot. We can't wait to see you there.
All right, guys, we are back with Liz Faircloth. And we've talked about spouses working together. We've talked about scaling and going into commercial. Now we want to talk about the female perspective, because there's always this underlying systematic idea that real estate is a boys' club. But Liz and her partner debunked that. So Liz, kind of tell us why you decided to start InvestHer. Where did that passion come from?
Yeah. So in just long story short, when I was in grad school, getting my degree in social work, I had an experience where I did a lot of field placements for like all women groups. So these women might have a mental illness, they may have a substance abuse, but I did a lot of work with women and just sitting in circles and supporting them. And these women were through a lot, it's different parts of Philadelphia is where I was. And I took a business course while I was there. And the business idea I had was I wanted to create a women's center where women could come together and really support each other. And at that time, both more on the mental illness and the substance abuse, but the core was like supporting women and empowering them. I forget what I even called it. That was 20 something years ago, right? So that business plan never happened, but fast forward, I meet my now partner, Andresa. And even in my consulting days, I always gravitated towards all like the corporate training for the women leaders. And it just always seemed to be something I was always very passionate about. And so when her and I came together, we were flipping properties, we were doing deals together. And we'd meet up at an event or a REIA meeting or something. And, there wasn't a whole lot of women speaking. If they were speaking, they were on panels. If they were on panels, they were the only ones in the panel. And we're like, there's more women in this business. Wouldn't it be great if we can get them together and really create this neat, place for a safe space for women to give, to get, to not just talk about random things, but really talk about things that women in investing want to talk about. Yeah, their kids and this, but they also want to talk about how they're doing with their properties and their net worth and how much money they want to make and the things that just most people don't talk about. So, or you don't talk about with your neighbors.
Right.
So so her and I had this kind of shared passion. And so let's start a podcast where we interview women, only women in this business. And that was 2018. And so we were told we would run out of women by a good friend of mine. He's just like, there's not a lot of investors that are women. I said, I don't know about that. I don't know them all, but I don't know about that,
Right.
So proved him wrong, 300 episodes later, there's plenty of women investors. I think women run under the radar. I think they're doing their thing and they just don't. I think women are always learning how to use their voice and how to use it very powerfully. and to do it unapologetically. I think that there is a place there for young women, women in whatever age they are, but I
Yep.
think we're all part of this group, and I'm leading this group to really create this space. Women outlive men 6 to 7 years. Women traditionally investing decisions, right? You could say are probably more male oriented. I think that's changed. Women have most of the buying decisions in the country, 70,
True.
80%. And when statistically you look at women, when they do invest, what are their, like, what does it look like? Women outperform men statistically when they invest. So, but women are not doing it as much, or statistically as well. So what's interesting is that there's a lot of women investing. When they do it, they outperform men. Not that it's about a competition, because there's a cautiousness, I think, but it's smart. And so women, I think, are just ready to take more of their investing decisions to themselves. You have women who are staying single longer. You have, there's a lot of reasons, right, for financially being more stable and independent. So anyway, that's a little bit of like what I've found to be the key, and why a community like ours is powerful, is that women really give and get, and they're able to create this neat kind of collective group that they can, talk about their kids,
Yeah.
talk about investing, talk about the contractor, all of the above.
So just to kind of piggyback off of that, my mom kind of got me started back in the 80s.
Wow.
She was flipping houses before flipping houses was even
Was a
a
thing.
thing. Right. So me and my brother, we came home from school one day and she was like, well, you know what? I had the urge and I bought these 2 houses. One was a burnt out house and one was an old raggedy rental that she bought. And immediately we thought, hey, this is just work for us, but she walked us through the steps and showed us how she repositioned those properties. One we still own as a rental, and the other one she went in, did the work, her and my father, and flipped it. And she showed us a $30,000 check at the end of the day. And this was
Wow.
in like 1989. And that kind of sparked or planted the seed in me for real estate investing. Naturally, I didn't do anything until years later, but it's so
That's
very
great.
true. Sometimes women, they will just get out there and they will make those sound decisions, those wise decisions, and they can really see the end of a thing before it even starts. So, I mean, kudos to women. Again, that's how I got started.
That's awesome. And it's very, the kind of community we're creating is like we have meetups across the country. So we have, 50 meetups where women can come together locally. And then we have a Facebook community where women are asking questions, giving advice. And our podcast is all about highlighting women's journey, not just in investing, but it's also about business, running your investing like a business. And also just, are you taking care of yourself and living life on your own terms? I think that's an important one. That's why we get into this, but yet it gets missed when you start building and, trying to get things done. And, a lot of ambitious people kind of get gravitating entrepreneurial. So I just love what we're up to, because it's really about the shifting and the safe space. We had a woman in our meetup. We started a meetup in Lancaster, and just quick story. She stood up and introduced herself, just like you do at meetups. And so I was there, I was speaking. So I said, we all introduced ourselves, and she was kind of one of the last people. And she stood up and she said, I'm so grateful to be here. She's like, I just recently went through a divorce, and my husband always told me that I can never, be much and invest and certainly buy a property without him. And she's like, being here is giving me confidence that I can do that. So we didn't even start the meeting. Everyone's like crying just because there's an emotional kind of intro. And that's what it's about. It's about confidence. And so no one could give anyone confidence, but a
Right.
community, a safe community where you're not getting berated, you're getting supported, and you're giving education. And you're also saying, we've done it, and here's how we've done it. Maybe you could learn something from it, is where people get confidence. And so I think that's the biggest thing that a community can give. And that's why your local REIA is so powerful, right? It's about confidence building. And so we all feel not confident when we're into new things. So we're trying to reduce that, because once you feel confident, we know women will do great. That's not
Right.
a question.
Yeah. So tell us about the event that you all have coming up right here in Scottsdale.
Yeah, super, super excited. So we're coming out to Scottsdale May 18th and 19th. We have rented the entire resort at the Omni in Scottsdale, and we'll have
Wait. Stop, Liz. You guys did what?
we rented the entire resort. So the resort is ours for 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah, our
Okay,
community.
nothing but women. So
Nothing but women.
men don't show up. Don't try and find a wife. Don't try and find a date. Let the women do what women do. So
Yeah, and it's gonna be, I like to say it's like a 500 of your best friends because we really have it structured in a way that's more retreat like versus
okay.
just transactional, like a conference may feel
Hmm.
sometimes. This is gonna be very transformational. We have 20 speakers coming. Sharon Lecter is one of our keynote, who's best-selling author. So the speakers are amazing, handpicked, real estate investing, self-care and obviously running your business like a business. Generational wealth is the theme. So everyone's topic, every of the 20 speakers is kind of connected to generational wealth, money.
Okay.
How do you pass along not just wealth, but what you stand for and believe. We have 20 companies coming to offer their resources and support and products. And it's going to be a pretty powerful couple of days. We kick
Wow.
it off with a pre-event, very much networking, and we do mindful breaks where women can connect with each other. They'll get breaks and time to connect. And then we end it with a big party.
Okay.
It's a red themed party. So everyone will be wearing red the last night. So women are going to have fun. They're going to, laugh. They're going to cry. They're going to figure out, maybe where they are in their business, where they need to go.
Mhm.
It's a very deep and transformational time. And we've only had one event and it last year, one InvestHer Con. And
Mhm.
the reviews and the feedback were really amazing. So we're just trying to take it to another level
Right.
this year around. So
So out of women, who should attend? Should it just be the professional women that's already in real estate? Should it be the novice that's just starting? Who is the conference catered to, Liz?
yeah, we really are, our community as a whole embraces all the above of what you just said.
Okay.
There's a journey, right? And we all start out new somewhere. We've gotten focused, like our Strive membership and some of the kind of focuses for our membership and our masterminding. Those are more experienced women. So like they may have done 5 to 10 deals. They're looking to scale. So those women will be there. And then there are women who are professionals who are maybe, looking to buy that first rental or that third rental. That's
Okay.
that's also the women that will be there. I would say either or, whether you're newer or experienced, you're serious about
Okay.
investing and you're ready to do it. And with the right tools and resources, you can do it. And that's where the community is there to kind of have your back. I think that's the common thread, whether it's a newbie or somebody who's done a ton of deals like me. I don't know how to, I haven't bought a vacation rental, so it's really helpful
Okay.
for me to talk to people who've done that. Right. So
Gotcha.
you could
Yep.
be in this business for 17 years and still be new at something.
True.
So yeah,
Very
so
true.
that's really what what it's about in terms of like a community feel.
Okay. So that's May 18th
And
and
19th. Yep.
19th.
Yep.
Um,
And I know Mike and
mhm.
your REIA has an affiliate, like a link, and we're
Yep.
we're offering $50 off of a ticket. So yeah, it's
Yep.
I think the code, what I tell you, it's
As
just
REIA 50. So
yep.
you get, yeah, so go to asria.org/calendar, go to May 18th and 19th. You'll see the InvestHer Con registration and just click on the link and follow the steps and show up. It's half the battle. You just got to show up. And I remember the first conference I went to. I think my first conference was like Bigger Pockets. The first one they did in Denver, like 10 years,
Oh, right,
12 years
right,
ago.
right. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
with Josh and everything. And yeah, it's like you're in this room with all the like-minded people, all with the same ambition, same goals. And I don't know, it was like, yeah, it was like a tribe and it felt really good. So yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's the same exact thing at your event. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's neat because you create connections that go well beyond. It's not just the education, right, or the community, but it's about the
Mhm.
network. You
Yep,
can't put a price tag on that. Like who knows somebody in this state or that state? I mean, it's
very
hard to
true.
do that by yourself. So
Love
So
it.
before we wrap up here, Liz, tell us how we can reach out to you. I know you guys have the podcast. Give us the podcast. Give us, social media handles for those who want to follow you along this journey and really get inspired by what you're doing, what Andresa is doing, what Matt is doing, because you guys are really doing a lot.
yeah. So, our website, DeRosa is DeRosa Group, GROUP.com, from like just a, syndication perspective. Our real estate investor community, if you go to the real estate investor.com, is like where all of our stuff is at. We have free events twice a month. Our Facebook community, I would recommend, is probably the best place to go because it's not like a page, but a group and a community. We have over 14,000 women asking questions, giving advice. We really protect that group. So it's just a group that really is very supportive and helpful to women, new experience, and you can ask anything. And that's just Facebook. It's just a group / the Real Estate InvestHER. So the Facebook group's kind of like a really helpful place to go, get connected to women. And then we start to share like events that are coming up, things that are happening. So you're kind of in one place to hear everything. And we're on Instagram at the Real Estate InvestHER as well. We post a lot there.
Perfect. So in signing off, Liz, give us some words of encouragement, something powerful, impactful for that investor, be it male or female, that's sitting on a sideline that really need that swift kick in the pants to get started.
I think it's about, there's two things I'd say, not giving up, I think is probably been, it's so cliche, but I feel like there were so many moments, like tough things that happened and continue to happen. If you're in business, tough things still happen. It's not like my life's perfect, or anyone's life is perfect. Just don't give up. And I think the biggest thing too is to create space in your life. Life is very busy and we busy ourselves a lot. And there's so much to busy ourselves on, especially now with everything. You have to create some quiet time for yourself to just reflect and just even step back and go, where do I need to get some clarity? What's working? What's not working? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? We do that when we turn, I just had a birthday a couple of days ago. So we do that on birthdays, but we don't do that ongoingly. So I think we really need to stop two things. As I reflect a lot, and when I don't reflect, I feel like I just keep going. So reflect and really get clear on that. Nothing great happens without failure, and just be persistent and don't give up.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Love it. There you go. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you, Mike. As REIA family, we really want to appreciate Liz, the Faircloths, and Real Estate InvestHER for all that they're doing in the real estate space, because it's not just one entity. It's not just two entities, but it takes a community in order for us to be successful and change the power dynamics in this world. So it starts with one choice, one decision at a time. And that decision is to get out there, take massive action, buy that first rental, that first vacation property, and start your real estate investing journey. So Liz, thank you so much. And with that being said, all of the show notes will be below if you want to reach out to Liz, want to get some more information about InvestHER. And that is it. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week. Every Monday at 8 a.m., a new show is released.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the REIA Show with your hosts, Marcus Maloney and Mike Delprete. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you found this information valuable, head over to asria.org and learn more about our community.